The moment the mayor publicly announced that Lincoln would no longer wear the red suit for Willow Creek's annual Christmas parade, the crowd in the town square erupted not in applause but in a wave of murmurs that quickly hardened into open hostility. What no one in the tight-knit Nebraska community expected was that a single 8-year-old boy named Ethan, clutching a crumpled letter to Santa, would quietly step forward weeks later and begin unraveling decades of prejudice with nothing more than unwavering belief. Lincoln Hayes stood frozen on the wooden stage, his white beard suddenly feeling like a mask he could no longer hide behind, as faces he had greeted with ho-ho-hos for 15 straight Decembers now stared back with cold judgment. The secret had finally clawed its way into daylight. Lincoln was gay, and for the last 12 years he had shared a quiet, loving home with Lucas, the high school history teacher whose gentle smile had once been their only shield against the world. That evening, Lincoln paced the living room of their modest Victorian on Maple Street, while Lucas sat at the kitchen table, fingers tracing the rim of a cold coffee mug. "They didn't even let me finish the announcement," Lincoln said, voice cracking. 20 minutes of cheers turned into 20 seconds of silence. Once Mayor Thompson said my name alongside the word lifestyle. Lucas rose slowly, crossing the room to pull his partner into a steady embrace, the kind that had carried them through college rejections, family estrangements, and the quiet fear of small-town discovery. "We always knew this day might come," Lucas whispered against Lincoln's shoulder. "But we built a life here anyway. That counts for something." Outside, snow fell in heavy curtains, blanketing the Christmas lights that now felt mocking rather than merry. Lincoln had always been the town Santa, not just the guy in the suit but the man who remembered every child's wish, who stayed late to fix broken ornaments, who quietly paid for toys when parents struggled. Now those same parents crossed the street when they saw him coming. The boycott spread faster than the flu that always hit after the parade. The hardware store where Lincoln bought supplies for the community float stopped ordering his usual red velvet. The diner that once reserved a corner booth for Santa and his friend suddenly had no tables available. Even the church, where Lincoln had volunteered for the toy drive since he was 30, posted a polite notice thanking him for his service but suggesting new volunteers. Lucas watched his partner shrink inward, the man who once lit up every room now avoiding eye contact at the grocery store. Late at night, Lincoln would sit by the window staring at the empty street, replaying every Christmas he had given children magic while hiding his own truth. "I thought if I loved this town hard enough, it would love me back," he confessed one night, tears catching in his beard. Lucas held him tighter, remembering their first meeting in a dusty university library where Lincoln had been studying education and Lucas history. Two scared young men from conservative families who found courage in each other's quiet confessions. That shared history now felt like both anchor and wound. Across town in a modest ranch house, young Ethan stared at the ceiling, his letter to Santa still clutched in his fist. His mother had tried to explain why Santa wouldn't be at the mall this year, but Ethan only heard that his favorite person in the world was hurting. The boy didn't understand words like gay or boycott. He only knew that Lincoln always waved extra big when their sleigh passed his house and once helped him find his lost dog on a freezing December night. Ethan made a decision right then, the kind only a child could make without fear. He would deliver the letter himself. The next afternoon, bundled in a red scarf that matched the suit he missed so much, Ethan slipped out after school and trudged through the snow toward Maple Street. He didn't knock loudly. He simply slid the envelope under the door and ran, heart pounding with the pure conviction that magic still existed. Inside, Lincoln picked up the letter, unfolded it with trembling hands, and read the careful crayon words. "Dear Santa, please don't be sad. I still believe in you. Love, Ethan." For the first time in weeks, Lincoln smiled. Lucas watched from the hallway, seeing a spark return to his partner's eyes. "Maybe not everyone has forgotten," he said softly. That single letter became the first crack in the wall of silence. Lincoln didn't know it yet, but Ethan's innocent act had just set in motion a chain of events that would test every relationship in Willow Creek, including the one between two men who had spent 12 years learning that love, when real refuses to stay hidden forever. The snow kept falling, and somewhere in the quiet, the town's heart was already beginning to stir. Lincoln carried Ethan's letter in his coat pocket for days, pulling it out whenever the weight of the boycott pressed too hard. Lucas noticed the change immediately, the way Lincoln stood a little taller when they walked to the post office together, even though whispers still followed them like shadows. "You're smiling again," Lucas observed one morning over pancakes, his own voice carrying the relief of a man who had watched his partner fade for weeks. Lincoln nodded, folding the paper carefully. "Kid wrote like he really believes I'm still Santa. No conditions. No judgment." Their conversation drifted into the past, the way it often did when pain resurfaced. Lucas remembered the night Lincoln first told his conservative parents about their relationship, how his father had simply hung up the phone and never called back. Lincoln had cried in Lucas's arms that night, whispering, "I lost my family, but I gained you. I thought that was enough." Now the town felt like another family turning away, and the ache was familiar but deeper. Meanwhile, Ethan's mother, Sarah, discovered the missing letter and gently questioned her son. Ethan's answer was simple: "Santa needs a friend, Mom. Just like when I was scared of the dark." Sarah, a single mom who worked double shifts at the hospital, had always liked Lincoln. She remembered how he stayed late one Christmas Eve, fixing the lights on her porch when her ex-husband had left them in darkness. But the town's mood was contagious, and she hesitated to speak up. That hesitation ended the day she saw Lincoln at the gas station. Shoulders slumped as the attendant refused to pump his fuel until someone else could do it. Sarah marched over, paid for the gas herself, and drove home with Ethan's words echoing in her mind. Word of Ethan's letter spread quietly at first through playground chatter. Other children began asking their parents why Santa wasn't coming anymore. One little girl told her father, the owner of the hardware store, that she had written her own letter and wanted to deliver it too. The man grumbled but didn't stop her. Small acts multiplied. Lucas, who taught American history, used the moment to slip in lessons about courage and change during class, never naming names but watching his students' eyes light up when they connected the dots. At home, he and Lincoln argued for the first time in years, not out of anger but fear. "If we leave town, we lose everything we built," Lucas said one night, voice tight. Lincoln countered, "If we stay, I lose myself pretending I don't care what they think." The misunderstanding cut deep. Lucas felt accused of cowardice. Lincoln felt abandoned in his pain. They slept on opposite sides of the bed, the silence heavier than any snowdrift. Ethan returned 3 days later, this time knocking softly. Lincoln opened the door, beard freshly trimmed, and invited the boy in for hot chocolate. Lucas watched from the kitchen, heart swelling at the pure, uncomplicated conversation that followed. Ethan talked about school, about wanting a bike, about how Santa had always made him feel safe. Lincoln listened as if every word was a lifeline. No one mentioned the boycott. When Ethan left, he hugged Lincoln quickly, the way kids do, and said, "See you at the parade, Santa." The door closed, and Lincoln turned to Lucas with tears in his eyes. "He called me Santa. After everything." That night they reconciled in the living room, hands intertwined, promising each other they would face whatever came next together. Lucas whispered, "Your heart is what made me fall in love with you 12 years ago. Don't let them take that." The town, however, was not ready to soften. Mayor Thompson called an emergency meeting at the community center, citing family values and suggesting the parade needed someone more appropriate. Lincoln's sister, who still lived 2 streets over and had never fully accepted her brother's relationship, sat in the front row nodding along until a memory surfaced of Lincoln reading to her children every Christmas. She left early, conflicted. Lucas received anonymous notes at school telling him to take his lifestyle elsewhere. The betrayal stung most when their longtime neighbor, a man Lincoln had helped shovel snow for years, crossed his name off the holiday card list. Yet Ethan's second visit planted something stronger than fear. Lincoln began baking cookies again, leaving plates on porches at night like he used to. Lucas started tutoring kids after school, reminding them that history was full of people who changed the world by refusing to hide. The cracks widened, but the real test was still coming. Christmas Eve approached like a storm cloud, and the pressure inside Lincoln and Lucas's home reached a breaking point. Lincoln woke one morning to find his Santa suit slashed across the chest, left on their doorstep with a note that read, "Not welcome here." The vandalism shook him to his core. Lucas called the sheriff, but the response was lukewarm at best. Another quiet reminder that some people mattered more than others. That afternoon Lincoln sat at the kitchen table, suit in his lap, fingers tracing the ruined fabric. "Maybe they're right," he said quietly. "Maybe I was never supposed to be their Santa." Lucas knelt in front of him, forcing eye contact. "You were the best Santa this town ever had. Not because of the suit, but because you cared. Don't let fear rewrite our story." Their conversation turned into the deepest they had shared in months, revisiting the day Lucas proposed in a quiet park outside Omaha, rings hidden in a history book, promising a life of quiet defiance. Lincoln had said yes without hesitation, believing love could outlast any prejudice. Now that belief was being tested daily. Ethan appeared again that same evening, this time with a small drawing of Lincoln in the red suit standing beside a Christmas tree. "I told my dad you're still magic," the boy said simply. Lincoln accepted the drawing with shaking hands, unaware that Ethan's father was none other than the hardware store owner who had led part of the boycott. The man had found the drawing on his son's desk and felt something shift, though he buried it under gruff silence. Word of Ethan's visits reached the mayor, who summoned Sarah to his office and warned her about influencing the child. Sarah stood taller than she ever had and replied, "My son is teaching me more about kindness than you ever did." The confrontation spread through town gossip like wildfire, forcing people to choose sides. Lucas faced his own crisis at school when the principal suggested he take a leave of absence for the holidays. Students protested quietly, taping notes to his classroom door that read, "We believe in Mr. Hayes too." One student, a quiet girl who had struggled with her own identity, stayed after class and told Lucas, "You and Mr. Lincoln gave me hope that I could be honest someday." The moment cracked Lucas's resolve to stay calm. That night he and Lincoln argued again, this time about sacrifice. Lincoln offered to move to Omaha and start over. Lucas refused, saying he had already sacrificed his relationship with his own parents to be here. "If we run now, we teach Ethan that hiding is the only way," Lucas said. The misunderstanding nearly broke them until Lincoln pulled Lucas close and admitted, "I'm scared of losing you more than I'm scared of this town." They stayed up until dawn, talking through every fear, emerging stronger, the kind of strength only shared pain can forge. Meanwhile, Ethan's father found the courage to visit the hardware store's back room, where he kept old photos of Lincoln helping at Little League. He stared at them for a long time before calling his son downstairs. "Tell me again why you like Santa so much," he asked. Ethan's answer, pure and unfiltered, planted the first real seed of doubt in the man's heart. Across town, Lincoln's sister showed up at their door unannounced, tears in her eyes. "I was wrong to stay silent," she said. "You're still my brother." The apology came with a plate of cookies she had baked herself. Small mercies accumulated, yet the mayor's office remained firm about the parade. Lincoln received an official letter stating the role had been reassigned. He read it aloud to Lucas and Ethan, who had arrived with another letter, and for the first time the three of them laughed together at the absurdity. Ethan's innocence became the bridge they needed. The boy didn't see labels, he saw a friend. That simple truth began to echo louder than any boycott. The week before Christmas brought the highest tension yet. A local newspaper ran a story titled "Tradition or Truth" that quoted anonymous residents calling Lincoln's presence inappropriate for children. Lucas read the article at the breakfast table and slammed it down, his usually calm demeanor cracking. "They're using our love as a weapon," he said. Lincoln, who had been quietly repairing his damaged suit late into the night, looked up with determined eyes. "Then we'll show them love is stronger." Their decision to fight back came not with anger but with quiet action. Lincoln started leaving handmade ornaments on doorsteps with notes that simply said, "Merry Christmas from a friend." Lucas organized an after-school history club where students researched stories of ordinary people who changed their communities through courage. Ethan became a regular visitor, helping Lincoln string lights on the front porch despite the cold stares from passing cars. The boys' presence turned their home into a small sanctuary of laughter amid the storm. Betrayal arrived from an unexpected place. Lincoln's old college roommate, now living in town and running the florist shop, had been the one to leak the relationship details to the mayor after a drunken conversation at the bar. When confronted, the man broke down in Lincoln's driveway, admitting jealousy over the stable life Lincoln and Lucas had built. "I was scared for my own secrets," he confessed. The apology came with a truckload of poinsettias as a peace offering. Lincoln forgave him, not because it was easy but because holding on to hate would have cost him the very peace he was fighting for. Lucas stood beside him, hand on his shoulder, reminding his partner that forgiveness was not weakness. The incident forced both men to examine their own past choices. Lincoln admitted he had hidden their relationship longer than necessary out of fear of exactly this moment. Lucas confessed he had sometimes resented being the quiet one, while Lincoln played the town hero. Their honest conversation, raw and tear-filled, strengthened the foundation they had built over 12 years. Ethan's father finally spoke up at the weekly town council meeting, voice shaking as he recounted how his son's unwavering faith in Lincoln had made him question everything. "I taught my boy to judge people by their hearts, not their bedrooms," he said. The room fell silent. A few heads nodded. Others crossed their arms. The mayor adjourned the meeting abruptly, but the seed had been planted. That night Lincoln and Lucas sat on their porch swing, wrapped in blankets, watching snowfall. Lucas turned to his partner and said, "Whatever happens with the parade, we've already won something bigger. We've reminded this town what real magic looks like." Lincoln leaned his head on Lucas's shoulder, the same shoulder that had carried him through every crisis since college. "I couldn't have faced any of this without you." Their embrace under the porch light was simple, tender, and full of the kind of love that had survived every test thrown at it. The following day brought another surprise. Lincoln's sister organized a small gathering at her house, inviting neighbors who had quietly supported the couple all along. Ethan arrived with his mother, carrying a new letter that read, "Dear Town, Santa is still real because love is real." The adults read it aloud, some with tears. Conversations shifted from judgment to curiosity. One older woman admitted she had lost a gay son years ago and regretted never standing up for him. Her story opened floodgates. Lincoln listened, heart full, realizing the boycott had forced the town to confront its own hidden pains. Lucas watched his partner come alive again, the Santa spirit returning stronger than before. Yet the parade was still scheduled without him. The men prepared themselves for disappointment, but Ethan's innocent persistence kept hope alive. The boy had become more than a visitor. He had become proof that one pure heart could challenge an entire community's fear. Christmas Eve arrived wrapped in fresh snow and nervous anticipation. The parade committee had stuck to its decision, installing a new Santa who looked uncomfortable in the suit. Lincoln and Lucas chose not to attend the event, instead hosting a quiet gathering at their home for the few friends who had never wavered. Ethan showed up early, eyes bright, dragging his father along. The hardware store owner stood awkwardly in the doorway until Lincoln offered him coffee and a seat. "Your son taught me more in 1 month than I learned in 50 years, Lincoln said simply. The man nodded, voice thick. "I'm sorry it took a kid to show me what matters." The room filled with quiet stories of regret and redemption. Lucas shared how he and Lincoln had met in college, two scared young men finding courage in midnight study sessions and shared dreams of a life where love didn't need hiding. The group listened, really listened, for the first time. Midway through the evening, the doorbell rang again. A group of parade participants stood outside, snow on their coats, faces sheepish. They had left the official event early. "It didn't feel right without you," one said. Lincoln invited them in, and soon the house overflowed with people sharing cookies and memories. Ethan climbed onto Lincoln's lap and whispered, "See, you're still Santa." The moment was interrupted by the sound of carolers outside. But these weren't the usual group. They were singing directly to Lincoln and Lucas's house, voices carrying through the cold air. Lucas pulled his partner to the window, and together they watched the town slowly gathering on their lawn. The mayor stood at the back, arms crossed but not leaving. When the singing ended, Ethan stepped onto the porch and in a clear voice announced, "Santa Lincoln helped me when I was scared. He helps everyone. That's what Christmas is for." The boy's words hung in the freezing air like a challenge. Silence stretched, then broke when Lincoln's sister began clapping. Others joined until the entire crowd was applauding. The mayor stepped forward, cleared his throat, and said, "I was wrong. The parade needs its real Santa." Lincoln felt tears freeze on his cheeks as Lucas squeezed his hand. The misunderstanding that had nearly torn them apart weeks earlier dissolved in that collective acceptance. Later, after the crowd dispersed, Lincoln and Lucas stood alone in their living room, the damaged suit now mended with careful stitches from Ethan's mother. Lucas pulled Lincoln close, their foreheads touching. "We almost lost each other in the noise," he whispered. Lincoln smiled. "But we found each other stronger." Their kiss was gentle, full of 12 years of shared battles and quiet victories, the kind of love that had quietly changed them both into better men. Ethan had been the spark, but the fire belonged to every choice Lincoln and Lucas had made to stay true to themselves. The next morning, Christmas Day, the town square filled early. Lincoln stepped onto the sleigh in his repaired suit, beard white and eyes bright. Lucas rode beside him as official elf assistant, a role the committee had created on the spot. Children cheered as the parade began, but the loudest applause came when Ethan ran alongside the sleigh waving his letter. The entire route felt different, warmer, as if the town had collectively exhaled. Lincoln waved to every face, some still hesitant but many smiling with genuine warmth. Lucas watched his partner glow. The internal crisis that had nearly broken him now transformed into quiet strength. At the end of the route, Lincoln lifted Ethan onto the sleigh for a special photo. The boy's grin brighter than all the lights combined. The moment captured everything the town had learned. Love, in all its forms, was the real magic. The weeks after Christmas brought a new rhythm to Willow Creek. Lincoln resumed his volunteer shifts at the community center, but now Lucas joined him openly. Their partnership no longer whispered about but acknowledged with nods of respect. The hardware store owner hung a small rainbow ornament in his window, a quiet symbol of change. Ethan visited every weekend, helping Lincoln build new parade floats and listening to stories about history and courage from Lucas. The boys' innocent questions often led to deeper conversations among the adults, conversations that healed old wounds. Lincoln's sister became a regular at their Sunday dinners, bringing her children who now called both men uncle. The family Lincoln thought he had lost forever slowly rebuilt itself through small, consistent acts of love. Lucas faced his own growth when he decided to come out fully at school, sharing his story in an assembly that left students inspired. One teenager approached him afterward, eyes shining, and said, "You showed me I don't have to hide." The moment echoed the awakening Lincoln had experienced months earlier. The two men spent long evenings talking about how the boycott had forced them to confront their own fears of visibility. "I spent years protecting you by staying quiet," Lucas admitted one night. "But real love doesn't hide." Lincoln pulled him close, the same embrace that had anchored them through every storm. Their relationship, once tested by external hate, now flourished in the light of acceptance. They even began planning a small commitment ceremony for spring, inviting the entire town without fear. Ethan's father organized a town-wide toy drive in Lincoln's honor, and the turnout exceeded any previous year. Residents who had once crossed the street now stopped to shake hands and apologize. The mayor himself visited Maple Street with a formal apology and a new proclamation naming Lincoln Santa for life. The gesture felt earned, not performative. Through it all, Ethan remained the heart of the story, his pure friendship reminding everyone that change often begins with the simplest question: why can't we just be kind? Lincoln and Lucas watched the boy grow, knowing they owed him more than they could ever repay. The emotional journey that had started with rejection ended in a deeper understanding of what family, friendship, and love truly meant in all their forms. On New Year's Eve, as fireworks lit the Nebraska sky, Lincoln and Lucas stood on their porch holding hands. Ethan waved from across the street, his family beside him. The town felt different, brighter, more whole. Lincoln turned to Lucas and said, "We almost let fear win." Lucas smiled. But a little boy reminded us that love always wins. The year ahead held new challenges, but they faced them together, stronger, wiser, and unapologetically themselves. The story of the gay Santa and the boy who changed everything became legend in Willow Creek, passed down as proof that one child's courage could rewrite an entire community's heart. True or false? One child's innocent act of kindness can truly overcome generations of prejudice in a small town?